I hate getting bluffed. I don't like having to fold. I don't want players pushing me around. They can't steal my chips. If any of those sound like you at the poker tables, then this video is just for you. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why this happens and more importantly, how to combat it. All right. So I had a really good conversation with one of my poker athletes on a group coaching call last week. And one of the issues he was having is he was calling too wide, or in his terms, he was getting too involved in pots. All right, and he said something very interesting, which I want to elaborate on in today's video and explore it so you guys understand the root of where it comes from. He said, I don't like to give up pots. I don't like to give up pots. How many of you guys can resonate with that? How many of you are on rivers or turns and you're like, I don't want to give this up? All right, I'll come back to that exact sentence soon. But first of all, we went exploring. So I started to probe him. I was going, why do you not like to give up? And first of all, he said, because they could be bluffing me and I don't know what they've got. And he goes, the feeling of uncertainty, I don't like that. And he knows with one button, by clicking call generally, or raise, he can get some information. He can see what they've had. And uncertainty gets moved over to certainty. Now I know. All right, so the feeling of uncertainty, I don't know what they've got, can be fixed. He can get out of that feeling. All right. Then I started to ask him more questions and he started telling me how folding always felt like a loss, whereas calling could feel like a win. All right. And if you think about that, it's very true, right? If you hit that fold button in any poker scenario, game over. You've lost. It is gone. All the money is gone. All right. You've lost all the chips, apart from the ones that you didn't put in. If you call, however, you've got some chance getting it right. I'm pretty sure your opponent's got some bluffs in his range, so you could win. Also, you get validated by that uncertainty. You now get to see what he has. All right, so now all of a sudden we've got this very alluring call button. The call button's like, come on, you might win, and you get to see his cards. It's very, very tempting. All right, so we see where the predicament comes from. So we're struggling to hit the fold button, even though strategically, this is in the context that you know the fold is the correct option in hindsight, but you don't allow yourself to fold. You find a way to call. All right. So now what's very interesting is we'll go back to the initial thing the player said. I don't like to give up. All right. Think about that. Who likes to give up? I don't like to give up. I don't like to give up anything. If something's meaningful to me, whether it's money, resources, things, my goals, I don't want to give them up. All right. So even the terminology of giving up is pretty strong, right? Are you really giving up? If anything, you're just letting the pot go. Or you're not putting chips into the pot, all right? You're avoiding losing money by not folding more, maybe not calling more, all right? So the terminology giving up instantly creates protection. If you're giving something to give up, it's worth fighting for, right? The opposite of giving up is to fight back. So as soon as you say, I'm not giving up, I don't like giving up, which is probably a strong character trait of a lot of poker players, and you've linked folding to giving up. So the first mistake, calling folding, giving up, rather than being a positive. So now it's got this negative connotation, and now you want to protect it. You now want to fight for it, all right? So when you give something up, you lose. You lose something. And in poker context, you lose chips. You lose money. You lose your graphs going down, so you lose EV in this context, all right? So we're now starting to realize, shit, by just folding by one button, a simple button on the screen, all these emotions and feelings are coming up, which feel negative, all right? Now, once you've got this, I don't want to give up, just like a filter that's put on in front of the screen, then the mind does something really clever. It starts to rationalize that decision. All right, so as soon as you say, I don't want to give up, the mind starts to say, well, wait a second, he could be bluffing. He could definitely be bluffing. The mind then goes on a search to validate why you shouldn't give up, why you should call, why you shouldn't fold. And the mind's very creative. It will find all sorts of combinations that your friends will have. It will rationalize. It will project what you would have done in that situation onto him. All right, so the player I was talking to said, he'll often think things like, all right, he's probably got top pair here, and if I raise this sizing, he should know I've got at least 2 pair, so he should fold his top pairs. And what he was doing, his mind was projecting a unique scenario onto his opponent and how he would portray that scenario and then create this whole narrative, all right? But it's all coming from, he doesn't want to give up, all right? So now the mind rationalizes it, he'll make this creative player, for you know what, he's throwing loads of chips that didn't need to be thrown in, all right? So this is you this is the predicament. All right. Now, the issue is we've got to realize, we've got to become very, very comfortable with the fact that folding in general feels worse than calling. All right. Just obviously there's a generality here. Some of you guys might not feel that way, but in this context, especially if you were watching this video to this point, folding feels worse, right? So you've got to realize, you've got to gain a number of skills. All right. So in my coaching, I basically coach poker players how to level up 8 skills. That's it. 8 skills in order to deal with any situation that comes their way. So the first skill you need is self-awareness. You need to realize things are coming up that are triggering me and I'm struggling to hit this fold button. I'm calling, I'm getting involved. Right? So this player who was on the conversation had already worked his way through self-awareness. He knew what was happening and you could see the problem coming up. The second skill you need to work on is emotional regulation. You need to realize that certain emotions are coming up when you're interacting with your environment. I call that getting triggered. So in this context, the feeling of uncertainty in this player, giving up and possibly getting bluffed, leads to this negative emotional state. Because he couldn't handle that emotional state, because a lot of players can't handle how that feels, they then make a mistake. All right. So now we need to go back to the trigger, the actual situation, and go, okay, I'm struggling to fold here because my mind has labeled this as giving up, which is weakness, which is losing, which is me basically going away from my goals. How can I see the situation more clearly? All right. And you've now got to be creative and you've got to go back into that same moment and go, how can I show my mind that folding is not giving up? All right. So the first thing with this player, get rid of the word giving up. All right. Get rid of that and start to use terminology like letting go or saving money. All right, you're almost saving money. I had a really creative solution with one of my clients where he would basically mark down every spot where he should have folded, like big spots, and he would calculate how much EV it would cost him in those spots. All right, he then realized that, okay, every time I call in these kind of spots, I lose X amount of money, right, which is quite a negative. He then reframed that and goes, okay, if I could fold in these spots that I'm currently losing all this money, I would actually gain money. Effectively, I would gain money. So he kept this tally chart of all these spots that he was folding. Every time he folded, he'd note it down. And at the end of his session, he'd calc up how much he'd made, how much money he'd made from folding. All right, it's obviously theoretical because he didn't actually make that, but he stopped himself losing, which in a nutshell makes him win. All right, so you've got to start to change your relationship with folding. You've got to start to change the language of how you're thinking about it, but also realize that you've got to get a good relationship with folding. And you've got to start to see getting away from pots as a big positive. What you see with most high stakes guys, especially successful guys, they take pride in folding. They often take more pride in the folds and the hands they get away from than the bluff catches in the crazy calls. Although that's the kind of stuff you kind of see on more of the kind of poker streaming stuff or the channels. Players get a lot of pride from finding big folds. All right, so you've got to find a way, how can I get away from hands? And how can I make it internally so it feels like a win? So it feels like I'm giving something up. The next thing you need to work on is uncertainty. You can never get rid of uncertainty. All right, uncertainty is always going to be there. If you don't get comfortable with how that feels and you want answers, you're always going to call too much. You're always going to find ways to seek certainty. So you've got to spot it. Again, it comes this emotional regulation, this awareness. I'm having this response. Okay, this is because I don't like uncertainty. This means I want to know the answer. Okay, but it's going to cost me money. Okay, can I stay centered? Can I stay still in that moment? And can I find a way to live with uncertainty? All right, this takes time. All right, spending time with uncertainty. I still do this myself where if I'm worrying about the future and how things are going to go, I spend time going, okay, Adam, I don't know. I don't know. It's been coming like you don't know if your opponent's bluffing you. You don't know if you would have won the pot you called. And you've got to be comfortable not knowing. All right, so you've got to get comfortable in uncertainty. All right, this takes time to build that, but emotional regulation is the skill. And the final skill you need to develop is the skill of perspective. All right, and perspective is the ability to see things clearly. Right? In this scenario, you're not seeing things clearly. You have a bias. Your mind is saying, I don't want to give up. I don't like folding. I don't like the feeling of uncertainty. So your vision of what is reality is clouded. All right, so you're lacking the ability to perceive your environment clearly. All right, so the first thing I do is see the obstruction. So when I work on this skill with my poker athletes, I talk about the faulty mental models. And this is a faulty mental model, exact one, which causes you to see things incorrectly and you make mistakes, and the mind will start to make rationalizations and justifications, which takes you off on a wrong angle or an angle that's going to cost you money in the long run. All right, so you've got to work on your ability to see things clearly and realize, oh, folding is just folding. If it's the most plus EV decision, why am I creating this big deal? Why is my mind making that fold button, which I know is the best strategy? Why is my mind making this a big deal? Because your vision's clouded. All right. So there's lots to unpack there. There's lots to work on. There's 3 skills of self-awareness, emotional regulation, and perspective. Now, if you want to start working on those skills, I've got a free PDF for you guys in the description. Just click that, download it, and I'll send it straight to your email, and you can get working on those skills right away. All right. As a poker player, it's really important to be breaking down everything that comes up in your life and during your days as obstacles that can be overcome by improving skills. All right. So today there's 3 skills to work on, and yeah, if you get that PDF, you'll be able to start working on those right away. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button before you go. So plenty more coming from me very soon.